Omega Boost. It's a game that makes me absolutely wish I had a PS1 back in the day. Or even that I learned about this game a lot sooner, because I think it's one of the essentials to any awesome PS1 collection. Now the story follows this guy, who I choose to think was named Max Sterling, for obvious reasons you'll see later, who has gone and turned in his Veritech fighter for the Omega Boost. And the Omega Boost is the second coolest jetpack-equipped robot since the Wing Zero, and also the second coolest time-traveling robot since Megas. So for those of you at home keeping score, the Omega Boost is basically the single coolest jetpack-equipped time-traveling robot from the future. Now equipped with his new magical time-traveling jetpack robot, Max has to travel back in time and replace a vacuum tube on a supercomputer to fix the future? Like, maybe? Okay, the thing about this game is the story is best left not talked about. Because this game has robots flying at high speed, shooting things that come flying at them, and making things blow up. This game has its priorities straight. Describing the action of Omega Boost is a little bit tricky, because 50% of the people who would play this would probably call it a rail shooter, and another 50% who play this would probably call it a full 3D flying around type of game. But this game feels a little bit different. It feels like the Omega Boost is completely stationary in this environment, and that might simply be because there's no real environmental stuff to give you a sense of your speed and direction, and then stuff just sort of flies at him. But with the snap of an L button, the Omega Boost locks onto its target and starts to orbit them, giving them a greater sense of mobility and evasion. Like, to the fact it almost feels like you're completely invincible because you are functionally just sort of flying around them in circles. Credits to the high amounts of mobility the Omega Boost has, but it does feel a little bit overpowered at times. During the Omega Boost's rampage of destruction, you are equipped with 3 weapons. You've got a standard machine gun, a lock-on laser system, which reminds me very heavily of the one in Panzer Dragoon, or much more relevant to the story, the crazy missiles in Robotech, as well as a type of invincibility bomb that the Omega Boost can deploy, which turns it into a giant super ball. But you need to cause quite a bit of destruction before this ability is unlocked. But this ability is absolutely vital, especially in the fights against the insanely giant, really complicated bosses, and when you're being assaulted by large amounts of enemies. This can save your life and cause an insane amount of destruction. The key, though, is specifically trying to figure out the correct strategy for using it. Because yes, it does make you invincible, and yes, it does do a lot of damage, but it takes a long time to build it back up so you can use it again. Especially because you can use it prematurely, and just do less damage and be invulnerable for less time. I really love the strategical dynamic of this ability. Now beyond these standard enemies, which will fly out en masse and are easily dispatched with your lock-on laser, there are crazy huge bosses that are all made of various sections that take sectional damage and just blow up excellently. Seriously, the bosses in this game are handled so well, and it's incredibly satisfying to just rip them apart bit by bit. And you're absolutely rewarded with it, because not only does it score you more points, which are of course important in an arcade-style game like this, but as you complete the levels with higher scores, you unlock additional lock-on capabilities for your laser, and just generally make it easier for you to cause more mayhem, which is of course important in a game about a giant robot destroying everything. And in the end, gameplay is high speed, frantic, adrenaline pumping, laser shooting, explosion-y, fighting giant things coming at you, shooting down multiple enemies, time-traveling action. Why haven't you bought this game yet? It's awesome! Very clearly. The controls themselves are simple and easy to use, including the fact that this game actually operates using the analog stick, which automatically makes it one of the best PS1 games ever. The rest of the controls are very simple. You highlight whatever target you want to blow up with your cursor, and then it blows up. There's also a quick dashing system, although I've never felt a real urgency to ever use it. The overall presentation to Omega Boost is just kinda average. It doesn't look the most spectacular. As I said, the lack of distinguishing bits of environment does mean that it's hard to really feel like you're going anywhere. Like I said, it does feel like you're basically stationary until an enemy comes at you. The overall aesthetic in terms of enemy design is fantastic. The bosses are crazy. I love the giant biological, semi-mechanical monstrosities that will attack you. It definitely reminds me of Panzer Dragoon, and any game that reminds me of Panzer Dragoon is okay in my books. And the Omega Boost itself looks really cool. The audio presentation is likewise just sort of okay. The soundtrack is high speed and it fits the action quite well, but honestly, I wasn't remotely paying attention to the soundtrack. I was having too much fun trying to blow stuff up and not get blown up in the process. The one thing I really don't like, though, is if you physically crash into something, there's like a sound clip where I guess your CO or your computer or something just asks if you're okay, and there's no delay between it, so if you run into things multiple times, you just hear it on loop, and it's bad. But aside from that, it sounds perfectly fine. And that's Omega Boost in a nutshell. There's not a lot to really say about it, you just kind of have to play it. It's a high-speed, robot blowing stuff up type of game, and I am absolutely all for games that are like that. It might not be the most Mensa-grade game ever, but you know what? It's high-speed, high-flying action, and it's an absolutely fun arcade-style game. And at the end of the day, it makes me kind of sad that this is basically the only game like this Polyphony Digital ever made. Because after that, they just made Gran Turismo, and then Gran Turismo, and then Gran Turismo, and then Gran Turismo. And they never made another Omega Boost, and they totally should have, because they had something good here. And yeah, driving cars is fun, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing. But you had robots blowing stuff up while traveling through time with a jetpack gold, and you just let it slip through your fingers by not making a sequel. What the hell?